Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Film Seizure. I am Jeff Arbuckle, joined, as always, by my two cohorts, co-host, if you will, in our journey into the bizarre, journey into the wild brain and manic states of one Edward D. Wood Jr. With me, Chuck Moore. Chuck, how's it going?
Going pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Doing great.
Good.
We also have Jason Oliver. Jason, what's up?
Hey.
Yeah?
How are you?
I'm doing good. This is one that I've wanted to do for a long time on this show. And you know what? The time is now.
We're doing it.
We're doing it. We are, I don't know, like a minute and a half into doing it. I forgot to start my stopwatch to see how long we were going, but whatevs. We're doing it now. Anyway, yes, so this is 1994's Ed Wood. I think I said this on the episode last week. If not for Batman, this is my favorite Tim Burton movie. By a pretty wide margin over third place. But this is the one that I would almost argue that this might also be the one that breaks him. Because there ain't much after this that I actually like from him. I mean, Big Fish is pretty good, but aside from that, I mean, his follow-up to this is atrocious. But that's neither here nor there.
Mars Attacks?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Why isn't it on the list here? Yeah, Mars Attacks is... Oh, there it is. Mars Attacks is pretty bad. There's some funny moments in that, but it's pretty bad. Don't turn a trading card series into a movie, kids. It doesn't work.
I mean, stuff like that is funny, right? Like the aliens themselves are interesting. It's almost as if it was only the aliens, it would have been far better. But we do have a far better one to talk about here, and that is Ed Wood. So let's get into that. This is one that I saw. I want to say really after it was in theaters, but before it went to video, because before I started working at the video store, my oldest brother, Jim, was the manager of that video store, and he had the screener, and he invited me over to watch it. And we did. And I laughed my balls off. But what about you guys? When did this come along for you?
I have no idea. I have no recollection of watching this for the first time. But
I don't remember watching it for the first time, but I think it was in the theater. I think.
Oh, I definitely didn't see it in the theater. It would have been on video, but I have no idea when. No clue.
This is a pretty big run of like Tim Burton films. By the time this came out, we were all pretty excited.
It's like a perfect run of films when you think about a career. Oh my God. Like leading up to this movie?
Because I know I saw Batman, Edward Scissorhands, Batman Returns, Nightmare Before Christmas, all of them in the theater for sure. So I feel like I would have gone to this one, but I don't think I had the same reaction initially that you did to this movie.
I also don't think that this movie was really in theaters for very long.
No, it did not. It was not a successful movie.
It's like kind of a blink and you miss it. So it would not be surprising that you didn't see it in the theater, Chuck. But if you did, good on you.
Well, I may have played at the theater you worked at, right?
Wouldn't have been 94.
Oh, would not 94. Yeah. Okay. All right. Oh, okay. Yeah, because it would have been...
I was still in New York then,
yeah.
I was in, where the fuck was I? I was probably in boarding school when this came out. That would have been my
hanging out with the massholes.
Freshman or sophomore year. Yeah. I definitely didn't see it in the theater. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, this was one of those things where it's like, yeah, I mean, I think this is a movie that appeals to a very special crowd that didn't really exist 30 years ago.
I bet you that I probably didn't even know who Tim Burton. I bet I didn't even know who Ed Wood was, other than some passing recognition of playing Nine from Outer Space when I saw Ed Wood, when I saw the movie.
I don't even think I
Okay.
know who Bela Lugosi really was when I saw
See, I
Ed Wood.
knew who Bela Lugosi was. I got all those jokes. The Lugosi.
But obviously in 1994, nobody gave two fucks for Bella.
It's true. That's true.
No, nobody gives two fucks for Bella. But yeah,
Well,
I definitely
Ed-
did. But I definitely didn't have like a great understanding of who Ed Wood was.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, Ed Wood was just coming back into some recognition in the early 90s because Plan 9 would get played on like Monster Vision from time to time. But like Plan 9, Glen or Glenda, those were all kind of creeping back into the zeitgeist because of VHS. And there were certain the distributors who were really kind of just finding these bizarre, like something Weird Video would do later.
Stuff like Reefer Madness and
yeah.
anything cheap that you could put on a videotape. It was getting out there. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the stuff, because George Weiss plays a little part in this movie that's fantastic, played by Mike Starr. But his movies would be featured on early seasons of Mystery Science Theater. So it was right around this time that all of these were kind of becoming popular to a certain subset of people who were interested in these kind of trashy movies. So I'm not terribly surprised that there was a movie made that would have, that would appeal to that group of people. But that group of people was way smaller 30 years ago than it would have been, say, in the 2010s or something like that. So I'm also not surprised that this movie could not make its $18 million budget back, which that to a certain extent also cracks me up a little bit, because if Ed Wood had discovered in his lifetime that he would have had a movie made about him that cost $18 million, I think he would have exploded, like just spontaneous combustion right out of the gate.
Yeah, that's pretty true. Yeah,
But
I think his notoriety had kind of started to grow even too. I know there was some talk about him being the worst director of all time and things like that. So his popularity was gaining in cult circles because of that. He's called anything the worst, and people are going to flock to become fans of it.
Exactly. Although, to be honest with you, there are worse directors.
Oh, I
now.
totally agree. There are. We didn't even know.
Yeah, it's like,
Depths of bad.
Tubi had not been created yet.
Tommy Wiseau had not made a movie yet.
True.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't gotten angry publicly in a movie theater about a movie of his yet.
Oh my
Right.
god.
But
I mean, you just did it to yourself. You had no one to blame but you.
I could kind of blame Chris a little bit. Anyway,
I want to see Big Shark though. Man, I missed it at Can, the local theater here. They had a double feature of that in the room, and I wanted to see Big Shark, and I missed it. It was sold out. That shit sells out like fast.
yeah.
Be on it. You got to be on it if you want to see some quality schlock these days.
Yeah, and that's to a certain extent also that kind of irritates me too. I mean,
Man, I mean, a Tommy Wiseau, what's his face movie with a shark? I mean, it has Susan all over it. It's
I
gotta
know.
happen. Like,
I know.
need to get my
But
hands on it.
we have seen The Room in a public screening.
Oh
And
yeah,
it's a fucking nightmare.
it's pretty obnoxious. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty obnoxious.
I mean, because like and I don't want to say that those types of screenings where people are like amped up and they're throwing stuff at the screen or they're responding to me. Okay, I'm not mad about that because one of these days I would like to actually see Rocky Horror in like all of its glory like that, right? But what irritates me are the people who think their fucking jokes are better than the jokes that have been collectively agreed upon are what you're supposed to do.
Oh God. So you've got not only do you have the scripted call and response
Yep.
crowd participation thing going on, which is obnoxious in its own right. I've never been a fan of Rocky Horror, and it's just like that is all obnoxious to me. And then you add in the people who are quipping on their own, doing their own like live riff tracks, and yeah, it's close to unbearable. I agree.
Yeah, because it's like, yeah, because these. Anyway,
Yeah.
not everybody are Mystery Science Theater 3000 people. But anyway, so back on track here. So yeah, so this, as we were kind of stating, this was the unbeatable run of Tim Burton going from Pee-wee to Beetlejuice to Batman to Edward Scissorhands. Did he do another live action? I don't think he did he? He was then he did Nightmare Before Christmas. Oh yeah, Batman Returns. Yeah, Batman Returns, which some people like a lot. They're wrong. It's a bad movie. No, it's not.
It's all right.
It's a bad movie.
I enjoy it. I enjoy it.
But whatever. But like, I mean, but he's got hit after hit after hit after hit, and this one is the critical darling of them all, more so than anything else. And it's the one that more or less kind of hurts him the most as far as his career after this. And it is a very strange movie. I mean, it is not something that, unless you know what you're getting yourself into, this is kind of Tim Burton kind of unleashed in some ways, where he is kind of letting the weird stuff just be like in funny little quips, or like there are things that Johnny Depp does when he just he just gives a look or he doesn't react to something that kills me every time I watch this movie. It's so dry while also being so crazy that it's just such a lovely movie.
There's a matter of factness about some of how he approaches things that, especially when it comes to like his fetish, right?
Yeah,
is so ahead of its time, even in the '90s, mid '90s, that I can't help but like want to hug it. And then there's also like there are these moments of just pure wide-eyed, naive optimism. That is also like super infectious. Like I don't know if he was like that in real life or not.
No, he was, I think, horrifically depressed.
Yeah,
in real life.
He died of alcoholism, right?
Yes,
something like that. Yeah. But maybe at this point of his career, maybe he was.
No, I think he was. I don't know. I think this is very much an Amadeus type of movie, right? Where you've got real people, real things that happen, but told in such a comedic and a parody of itself in a lot of ways.
You have to think though that Ed Wood was definitely like a go-getter. And he had to be able to wrap people around his fingers. So I think he probably did have a little bit of that charisma.
He certainly had charisma, I'm sure.
Weirdness in this movie.
Yeah, because like, I mean, sadly, it didn't take much to get a Bela Lugosi at this point. I mean, that guy was days away from death from his own vices and
but George
habits.
Weiss, he had to convince him. Like all that, I think is real to Ed Wood's life, right? Like
Yeah, I mean, there would be something there, sure. I mean, although George Weiss, working with George Weiss was really early in his career, so I also don't doubt that George Weiss also literally threatened to kill him.
sure.
Because Weiss made bad movies, but not like Ed Wood would. If that
Ed Wood.
yeah, how many bad movies would Ed Wood if Ed Wood could?
If Ed Wood.
Yeah.
At $13 million.
Yeah, right. Oh my God, he'd made 57 bad movies with that kind of money.
He'd be
I
like the
would-
opposite of Roger Corman. How to make 1,000 movies and never make a dime.
I know. Well, but I mean, there is something about Ed Wood that is accurate to that era that we still see today. When we've already made mention to, like Tubi being kind of a repository for all of these independent movies that are just schlock, but there's a market for it, right? Like he was making movies that there was a market for, and he had crazy ideas, and none of his ideas are technically bad. Technically, it's just that he didn't have any money and he didn't have any sets. He didn't have any practical knowledge of turning that stuff in. Like, say what you will about George Lucas. He had the practical, technical skill to make some movies. He wasn't just an idea guy. Ed Wood should have sold his ideas to other people who could have made those into something, but you're probably not getting into the business like he did doing that.
Right.
So basically this is kind of a biopic about a very specific era from about the mid 50s until about the mid 50s. Yeah, right.
Well, I think Plan 9 comes out in 59, right?
57, I think, actually. 57 or 9, I never can remember.
Either way, it's just a few years.
Yeah, it's just a few years, but it's presented as if it's just a few weeks, which also is kind of hilarious because, in a way, yeah, kind of, but yeah, so he starts off by he's doing a play. That's how the movie begins. Well, actually, technically, the movie begins with Jeffrey Jones doing the Criswell thing, coming up out of the coffin to talk about the strange oddity that is Edward Wood Jr. or whatever, right?
Right.
And Criswell is a whole other character, and I love the fact that he immediately gives up the game when they get to know him. It's like, oh yeah, it's all bullshit. It's like I just guess,
right.
but Ed is so like into it. He's like, wow, well, I'm gonna have a big hit. It's like, yeah, I'm just guessing.
Pretty funny.
Yeah, but I love the credits. Jason, what did you think about the title sequence here, as far as like going through like the Ed Wood style cemetery?
Yeah, I mean it's great. It's got the all the names on the headstones of the major players. I love Howard Shore's score to this movie.
Yes,
it's so fucking weird. Like the theremin with the bongo drums is something you've never heard before, and I don't think I'll ever hear again. It's so weird. I guess I was kind of curious about why he was scoring the movie in the first place, and I guess that Burton and Danny Elfman had a falling out for a short period of time over something, and so he wasn't asked to score this.
Bet you it was money on Nightmare Before Christmas or something.
Yeah, it definitely had something to do with that, but he never has said, and he never will.
I was kind of surprised that it wasn't. Like, I would have just assumed it was Danny Elfman. Sorry, go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, I know. I did too, actually, but then I looked it up, and I was like, oh, it's Howard Shore. Howard Shore, of course, has scored many, many great things, but a zany score is not really something you would expect from him.
Didn't he
This
do
one
that
is
Arnold
definitely
Schwarzenegger?
zany at times.
What's that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie we did with Joe that had the bongos and the wild fucking? I can't remember what it was, but I thought that was Howard Shore too. But it doesn't matter.
Had bongos in it
Yep.
with Joe.
I'll look.
Was it Commando?
Yes, Commando. Did Howard Shore do Commando? Because
I
that
don't
had
think Howard Shore did Commando. No.
somebody famous did it.
There's a certain attitude that the score has that makes me think of, like, what's that? What's that style of shirt? Like the short sleeve button up shirts that usually have like the two panels on it that are like very 50s.
James Horner did it.
Yeah, well, I don't know what those are called, Jeff, but yeah, James Horner.
But it seems like it's like the things that the people in swingers wear, right? You know, and it's like they're all hanging out at like a martini bar, and this would be the music playing.
Yeah.
You know, like with the bongos, and there's like a weirdness and like if you don't get it, you're not hip. So you know, it's like
it reminds me a little bit of the music in the scene where the dude meets Jackie Treehorn, right? And he's on the beach and the beach party's going on, and like the dude's being thrown up into the air in the blanket. It's kind of gives me that vibe.
This movie does have a little bit of Coen-esqueness to it.
Yes.
Like it's way more quirky in their way than in a Tim Burton way most of the time, it feels like, which is
because
I think it stays right in the realm of reality, right?
Yeah,
right.
It's when I said that it felt like Burton unleashed, it's in the characters where he feels unleashed, because Burton truly unleashed visually and character. That's when you get Willy Wonka and everything from that period of grossness. God, I hate that movie so much. I hate it so much. Anyway, but like but like those characters are very Coen-like because they all have their quirks. They're all very specific quirks to those people. Like no two characters have the same quirk.
Yeah, and a little bit of Wes Anderson. Like,
yeah.
It's weird. It's not. It doesn't.
Oh, because Bill Murray shows up.
Yeah, I mean, but it doesn't feel like a Tim Burton movie necessarily, which is, I think, what makes it kind of good in a way.
Well,
like if he was full on Tim Burton, like I know you walk this back a bit, but if it was truly Burton unleashed Ed Wood, it would have been like cartoon cars and shit, and you'd be like, "What the fuck is going on in this movie?"
Cartoon
Bela
cars.
Lugosi would have been Dracula the whole movie,
Right? Yeah. Although he kind of is,
but it's a reserved
Yes.
way. Yes.
Yes. I mean, because there's a ton of heart with the Lugosi character.
Martin Landau is fucking awesome.
Oh my God.
He's absolutely the core of this movie. Like,
For sure.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's the one that, I have a very specific note about a scene of his that's like almost tear-jerkingly touching in a way. We'll get to it. But anyway, so as we begin, Ed is doing plays, like is somewhere in Hollywood, like in some broken down theater that's it's storming and the roof is leaking. But it's some sort of play about war, and his girlfriend at the time, Dolores, is Sarah Jessica Parker, who comes down and offers them the bird of peace, and then when they have to pull her back up, she like jerks. Oh my God, it fucking kills me right out of the gate. Right out of the gate, that fucking kills me. It's just the little things like that, man. It's the little things.
I do appreciate how they have like the grand go into Hollywood, and then it like sinks down to the shitty place that he's at. It's like, okay, that immediately puts you where you need to be.
I mean, to be fair, most of Hollywood is the shitty place to be.
Yeah, but it's like grandiose, and then it's
right.
Like, here's where you really are.
Oh, there are definitely levels.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's measured by that Hollywood sign. Like the closer up to that sign, the better. But when you're street level, Anyway, so they're all hurriedly getting the reviews. They get the early edition of every paper, and the reviews are not great. But Ed chooses to say that while this one guy, at least he pointed out how nice the outfits look.
They don't even mention the costumes normally.
Right, exactly. But oh God, Bill Murray playing
Bunny.
Bunny, John Breckenridge. He decides to just attack the guy for being a closeted gay man, and it's like, oh, that queen wouldn't know no quality if it hit him on the ass.
Yeah. I want to point out too that Bill Murray is fucking great in this too.
My God.
Like, that person Bunny did not like the way he delivers the terrible shit that happens in his life. It's like so almost dismissive.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, it's so good.
That is pure Bill Murray doing whatever the fuck he wants. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, he's also got my favorite line in this entire movie. Let's hear him call Karloff a cocksucker.
Let's hear you call Boris Karloff a cocksucker.
Said in church.
We want these people to like us.
Yeah, they're all lined up in the back pew waiting to get
Baptized.
He also has the line is like, how do you do it? How do you do it? You get all of your friends to get baptized to make a movie with you.
So basically, but Ed, he has eyes on wanting to make a movie, and that's when Dolores discovers that they're going to do a life story on Christine Jorgensen, who was transgender actress at the time, and first person known publicly to have a sex reassignment surgery. And hearing this, Ed Wood kind of has like a look on his face, and he decides he's going to call George Weiss, who is producing the movie, and offer himself as the perfect person for the job. And he's not going to get into it on the phone. He's going to have to come down there and tell him himself.
Oh, that was just hogwash. Because he didn't want to say it in front of his girlfriend.
Right. And the reason for that is that he enjoys wearing women's clothing. And he says it so matter-of-factly in the office, where it's like, and the whole time Mike Starr is giving him this look like, oh, you got to be fucking kidding me. And he's like, he's talking about how, well, right now I am wearing women's underwear. It's like, and he's just so matter-of-factly delivering these lines about how, being afraid, not being afraid of being killed in World War II, but being injured, and the field doctor having to discover that he was wearing a brassiere and panties. And and that is true. Glen or Glenda was originally called I Changed My Sex, or at least it was called that in some regions in the country. And he says, all right. Eventually, he decides to give him the job, but not before Eddie has an interesting run-in with one of his favorite stars of all time, Bela Lugosi, who is shopping for coffins. And this is so he's like he wants to talk to Bela. He's like, oh, you're one of my favorites, and Bella's got to go home, and he can't find his bus pass. He's like, well, why don't you have a car? And it's like, oh, I don't, I never drive in the big city or whatever. And he's like, well, I've got a car. I'll drive you home. His car is a piece of shit. It's smoking all over the place. Bela Lugosi at one point even's like looking at it like, is this safe? And this is when he talks about like, Bela Lugosi knows he was washed up, and he's like, that's why he says, oh, nowadays nobody gives two fucks for Bela. And so basically they strike up this friendship, and he's like, well, Mr. Weiss, I have a star. I have Bela Lugosi. To which everybody at first, the running gag originally is, no, he's still alive.
Right.
And so basically that's how he gets the Glen or Glenda made, which he pisses off Weiss because he's named his script Glen or Glenda. And he's like, well, my poster says I changed my sex. He's like, why didn't you change the poster? Yeah, exactly. So he's already getting under George Weiss's skin. And I think he actually, in real life, made 2 movies with Weiss. I want to say one of his like kind of gang exploitation movies was also with Weiss. Because I actually do think Glen or Glenda was a moderate hit, actually, because the people are curious about stuff like that. At least certainly in certain areas, which Weiss talks about specifically how, like, certain people in certain states get really interested into the weird shit, and,
Right.
and that's why he was able to sell it to like Alabama, Indiana, and
Nobody's gonna watch
Mississippi
that
or
shit
something.
in L.A.
Right. Anyway, so basically, this is when Bela Lugosi gets real excited and he comes over to like find out what he's got as far as a script, because he's got to write the script in 3 days. And he comes in and Ed is on the phone with Bunny. He's like, all right, I want you to go down to the bars. I want you to find as many transvestites as you can get. And when Bella comes in, he's like, I need transvestites. And he hangs up the phone and he's like, Eddie, what kind of a movie are we making? By the way, every time he said Eddie, Martin Landau, I kept thinking this has to be what they took inspiration from for the Venom movies. Because when
Eddie.
Venom's talking to Tom Hardy, he's constantly sounding like Bela Lugosi saying Eddie.
Interesting.
I don't know. Anyway, but there was something else that Ed Wood has picked up on, because he did work in the studios for a little while, or he worked at Universal, I think he said.
Yeah, he's friends with the stock footage dude.
Yep.
And he goes, the guy's like, I got some new shit. And he brings him in and he shows him all this new stuff. And Ed's like, I can make a whole movie with this stuff. And then he like spouts off the idea right there. And the guy starts laughing.
He's like, what about the octopus? You forgot about the octopus.
Yeah.
He's like, that's for my big finale, or my big underwater finale.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like buffalo. There's like explosions.
The army has to come in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's a giant octopus. And that's his movie.
Yep.
And that ends up being used throughout the, like, all of those things are used in some way, shape, or form in the different movies that he's making throughout this
Right.
movie.
Right.
Perfect. It's Chekhov's B-roll.
Check out stock film.
Yeah. So this during the course of this also, it is brought up to Dolores. By the way, Dolores is a very interesting real life person.
Did she have a horse face? That line cracked me up because you have to think that's an ad lib by Sarah Jessica Parker.
I mean, I guess, I don't know, but
Like I remember people at the time saying that about her.
Oh yeah, I mean it was a joke in an early episode of Family Guy, even like at the end of the 90s.
But that's after this, right?
Yeah.
I think she had to have been making fun of the people that say that about her, which I found
Could
like
it have originated here, though?
I guess
it
it-
might have.
Maybe. I mean, because
I think people legit say she has a horse face, though.
I've heard Jeff say that, but I don't know if he was just quoting Ed Wood or not.
You just got outed, Jeff.
Well, I mean, she said it herself. Anyway,
Did.
so she she's always she's always looking for her sweaters. She can never find her sweaters, and when she does find them, they're always stretched out, which is something that Ed told George Weiss, and he eventually reveals to her that he's like, hey, I finished the script. He lets her read it, and when she reads it and comes out of the bedroom after reading it, he's dressed in her clothes, and that's her first like revelation that he is that he likes to dress in women's clothing, to which at first you think that's all going to be fine, but it begins to weigh on her a bit.
Yeah, I mean, she has a reaction originally to it, telling him, like, how can you stand there and say this shit to me? Like, how can you do this? So she originally is not good with it, and then he kind of sweet talks her a little bit.
Yeah, he gives his explanation, to which she's like, okay, but then as the movie's being made, it's more and more public because he is starring as Glenn or Glenda.
Right.
So that and the whole thing of him doing the first scene they're shooting is him looking into the store at the dress, and he cuts, and the guy shooting it's like, do you want to do another one? Just because, like, why? It's perfect. It's like, let's go to the next shot. And then when the cops come, and he tells her they don't have any permits, so they just have to run.
Yep.
Oh, that's yeah. Anyway, so they get the movie made, to which Dolores also, I think, kind of placates him a little bit because she's the other star of the movie, I think. But it's shortly after this that it becomes an embarrassing thing to her.
Yeah, and she does stick around, though, because she's supposed to be the star of the next movie.
Right. Right. Well, yeah, we'll get to that because that's Bride of the Bride of the Monster. Yeah,
Bride of the Atom, or whatever it is.
It ends up becoming Bride of the Monster. Yeah, it's So and she's like, when he also takes his movie to the studios, which I don't remember. Warner Brothers. Yeah, he takes it to Warner Brothers, who thinks he's putting on a big joke, right? He's like, "Oh, this is the worst thing I've ever seen." Yes. It's like, and to which he calls is like, the worst movie you've ever seen, eh? Well, my next one will be better.
Right.
It's just unflappable the whole time. But yeah, it's so this is also like, God, it's kind of hard to put this like and it's hard to explain it because like there's the movie making aspect and the important stuff, which is the stuff with him and Lugosi, because he goes over and hangs out with Bella one night and they're watching Vampira, and I can't remember what Eddie says he likes about her, but he's like, I think she has nice jugs.
Yep.
And he's like, he does the hand thing. He's like, how do you do that? It's like, well, you must be double jointed and Hungarian. And so, but yeah, he also discovers at this point that Bela's got a little bit of a morphine addiction, and by a little bit, I mean a massive morphine addiction. But yeah, so take it from here, somebody.
So yeah, he needed to get financing for his next movie. And he tried to go, like you said, to Warner Brothers, and they basically laughed him off the lot. And then somebody, I think his buddy, said, why don't you finance your own movies? He's like, oh, that's a brilliant idea, in his Willy Wonka way. And he ends up getting Bella on a show to get some money for Bella, who's running out of money, and to get money to start financing. And that's when he meets Criswell, who becomes his buddy, and they start running like little parties
at the Brown Derby.
At the Brown Derby to raise money, and they don't have a whole lot of luck doing this. And then
we didn't raise one nickel.
Didn't raise one nickel. And somewhere in that time, he sees Tor Johnson wrestling, and he's like, "Wouldn't he be great in a movie? Look at that man; he'd look wonderful on screen." So he casts him as Lobo. I think this is all that same movie, right? Married to the Monster. And after one of the failed parties, he's sitting at a bar and he meets Loretta King. And she takes a 50 out of her wallet, and he's like, "Oh." So he thinks she has a shitload of money, and he convinces her to finance his film. But in reality, she only has $300 to her name that she has given to him. So they get a space, right, to make the movie. They start making the movie, and this is all, of course, because Loretta wanted the starring role as well, was putting a strain between Ed and Dolores.
Right, because this is when Dolores finds out that she's been replaced, because Ed originally says, "Well, would you like to be the copy girl or something, the copy editor or whatever?" And he's like, "Well, what about this part? This seems really
seems like the part to be."
Yeah, and it's like, oh, because he knows he gave that to his girlfriend, which when he tells Dolores that Loretta's taking her spot, she's like throwing shit at him.
Oh my
and
gosh, she turns into Amber Heard in that scene. It's like that's the origination of where Johnny Depp got the idea to throw shit.
Right. So
throw a bunch of plates at me.
Yeah, and she hits him in the back.
Fight, right? This is how people fight.
Yeah.
That's how we fight in a relationship. We throw shit at each other.
And she hits him in the back of the head with a skillet, to which the very next scene opens and he's got the ice pack on the back of his head. Still, oh, that kills me. Anyway, yeah, so like she's been replaced, and and so right, and so like they have the scene where like, or it's like Loretta is like doing her normal thing. She gets she comes in to do the scene, and she's now basically saying, like, she's no longer holding up the idea that, oh, my boyfriend makes good movies or whatever. It's like, yeah, this is all shit. This sucks.
Yeah, these movies suck. And she's very like combative when she does her one scene in the movie, meeting Loretta King in the hallway.
It's not too far off from that in the real movie.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of these scenes I remember, at least the ones that are from Plan 9, are pretty close to what actually happened in Plan 9.
Yes.
Which is a credit to the people making this movie, that they were able to kind of recreate that stuff so closely. Like, reproducing a gaffe always almost looks intentional.
Right.
You know what I mean? But they reproduce the gaffes in this, and they look like gaffes.
But the great thing about that, though, is the recontextualization of it, where we are now like also Ed Wood's friend. It does do something different to that, because like watching one of his movies is bad. It's a bad experience. It's painful. But watching it in the context of this movie, where you see them making it the way that narratively they're making it, it's like you're with them. It's like, yeah, he made his movie. It's the one he's going to be remembered for. Boy, howdy, is he going to be remembered for.
And they also make it kind of like it was Ed's vision, which you can appreciate. But in reality, if they did it in the real way, he'd be like, we got to go to the next scene because we don't have money. We don't have time. We don't have this.
Right.
And then you'd just be like, I don't want to fucking watch this. So it's funner. It's funner to think that it was purposeful. Yeah. It makes it a little more bearable.
Right. I mean, that's also a pretty darn good script here too, right? Like you feel for these guys, and the whole production really, there's that whole other level of that, right, of that scene, of those scenes. Yeah.
The real reality of the making of these movies probably isn't nearly as fun.
No. Because it doesn't, because some of that fun would have shown up on screen.
Right, probably. Yeah, I mean, this is a better movie than Ed Wood ever made, obviously. So,
Yeah, yeah. That's an understatement. Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, this movie. So this movie is getting started, but then the guy who owns the studio space comes in, and it's like, hey, I need to get paid for the space, and so he's like, oh, okay. So he goes over to Loretta, asks, he's like, so yeah, I need, and she's like, well, you better pay him. He's like, yeah, I need the money. And she's like, well, I gave you the money. It's like, you gave me $300. And it's like, he thought she was going to give him $65,000.
Right, to finance the whole thing.
Right. And she only, yeah, like you said, she only had the $300. So the movie's killed again. So they have to go back to the Brown Derby.
If we haven't mentioned it, that's Juliet Landau.
Yes.
Martin Landau's daughter in that role.
Oh, okay. I never looked at who she was. I saw her name in the credits, but I never looked at who she
Probably
played.
best known for Drusilla in
from Buffy.
the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah, just picture her standing
just like her pops.
Yep.
Kind of. I guess Martin Landau kind of played a vampire. He played a guy who played a vampire.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, he's buried like a vampire, in
But
the
that's
outfit.
around the same time. She's on Buffy, I think, when this movie comes out.
No,
Would have been
not,
around
not
the right
yet.
amount.
It's later. Yeah,
A
Buffy's
couple years
later.
later.
Yeah.
Because Buffy didn't start until 97.
Oh, was it that late? I thought it
Yeah.
was like 94, 95.
Anyway, Ed needs to convince the meatpacking guy to give him the money, and this guy's like, well, you're gonna change the ending of your movie, and you're gonna cast my dim-witted son,
And you're all going to get baptized.
and you're
No,
That's
that's
later.
that's Plan
that
9.
guy?
No, Plan
that's
9.
Plan 9. That's
Yeah.
right. It's the meatpacking guy. Yeah.
But this guy changes the ending of his movie, and he makes his son be in it. So Ed has to write a whole new hero role for a guy that wasn't in there.
And he's constantly practicing the same line too. It's great.
Oh yeah, every time you see him, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
even when Bella fights the octopus, he's sitting there reciting his lines.
Oh, man. When Bella has to fight the octopus, that's like the best.
That's like the big scene of this movie, right? So we might as well just talk about it.
It's so wonderful. It's like Bella's going through some shit. He's on a night shoot. He tells Eddie, I don't think I can make it through a night shoot. And Ed, in his perpetual optimism, was like, oh, you'll be fine. You'll be great.
Take a nap.
Take a nap. We'll work around you.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, Eddie. And then does he shoot up in that?
Yeah, because moments later he comes out and is like, let's shoot
Let's
this
shoot this
motherfucker.
fucker. He just shoot this fucker.
It's probably the best shot in the entire movie because they're shooting him from behind, but you see his arm is the
Yeah.
reflection in the window.
Yeah.
You're like that. And Steph, like, I'm so accustomed now to saying that's a cool shot during movies, and Steph's like, she like rolls her eyes at me all the time. But that one happened. She looked at me. She goes, "Was that a cool shot?" I was like, yes, it was.
Yeah, they do a lot with Bella and like reflections with silhouettes, because when he comes through the woods, that's also silhouetted because that's all backlit.
Which is interesting because that's how you see like Nosferatu is silhouetted a lot.
Yep.
You don't see a vampire in a mirror, so his reflection being there it's kind of cool. Like playing on the idea of vampire.
Yeah. Yeah, because this is, I mean, this whole movie is, not only is it troubled from being shut down, from having a contentious scene between two characters who shouldn't be contentious, but they are in real life. Right. Eddie going through a breakup, basically, can't raise money for it, but also Tor Johnson walking through a door and nearly knocking down the stage, and he's like, he has to cover that up for, it's like, well, it's realistic.
Yeah, someone that size has to deal with that every day. Dude, when the octopus, we forgot to talk about this, because when the octopus falls on him,
oh my God.
That killed me. And almost Tor Johnson, or King Kong Bundy playing Tor Johnson, right?
No, it's George Animal Steel.
Oh yeah, Joy. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, we should talk about the heist because they got to get the octopus. They've got the stock footage, but they actually need a physical octopus.
Oh my god.
So, so Criswell is all about this. He's always up for a heist.
Yes.
You know? So they've got the keys to the storage room of one of the studios, and the octopus is just suspended in the ceiling, to which they have to send Doogie Howser's friend up to try to like jimmy the thing loose.
Yeah, Max Casella. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
He will.
Doogie Howser's friend.
Yeah, he'll always be Doogie Howser's friend. He's got to jimmy the thing loose. And the whole thing just falls right on to Tor Johnson. And what's he say when he's like, oh my God, we could have killed him? What? Oh, what does he say? Anyway, but yeah, so they get they get it and they're going to throw it into this thing and they're going to make it into a lake, except for they don't have a lake. They have to like put these sandbags up and they have to fill it with water. And everybody's like, well, this looks bad. And he's like, don't worry about it. It's going to match great. And it's going to be great. All right. Well, how do I turn this thing on? He's like, well, what do you mean? It's like, you know, the motor, how do I get the legs to move? And he's like, what motor? The whole thing is just, it's ruined because there is no, they were supposed to also get the motor, which they never actually get the motor for it. And that's why Bella's got he's like, just get in there and wrestle around with it a little bit. Chuck, do you remember what it is that Tor says when they asked him if he's okay when the thing falls on him?
Oh my god, no, but it cracked me up. What did
Anyway,
he say? Sorry, I wish.
No,
I remembered.
yeah, I can't think of it either. But like, oh my God, did we kill him? And he says something. He's like, all right, great, let's go. And so, yeah, so then that's when Bella comes out. It's like, let's shoot this fucker. And there's actually a special feature on the Blu-ray called "Let's Shoot This Fucker."
Oh, love it.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's like, okay, well, what do I do? And it's like, well, it's like, what about the legs? How's it going to, wrap around me? Or it's like, well, we misplaced the motor. So just, so just get in there and wrestle around with it a little bit. And yeah, so that's when they basically shoot him just yelling and screaming while lying in the water.
Better than wrestling. That's what he says.
That is what he said. Yes. Better than wrestling. Yeah.
Sorry, just came to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And so this is also when he talks about like, because I think this is also when he talks about like, he turned down Frankenstein. Is it?
Oh, when Bella says that, yes.
Yeah.
He said he turned down Frankenstein because there's no emotion there. There's no depth.
Yeah.
To the
He
character.
just, yeah. He like just, yeah. Yeah. He's already
Throw me
gone.
that whiskey.
Yeah. He's already also gone off on a guy who, when they were shooting Glenn or Glenda and his weird ass role in that, where he's like the god being thing, pull the strings.
Pull the strings.
But yeah, that guy says he was a sidekick to Boris Karloff, and that sets him off. He's like, sidekick.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the guy who's playing Conrad Brooks, I think. Or no, Conrad Brooks is played by Max Casella. It's the other guy.
Yeah.
Playing Gregory Walcott.
It's the guy he's one of the, wasn't he one of the guys in Silence of the Lambs, the one of the bug guys that Jodie Foster goes and sees?
Was he?
It kind of looked like one of them. Anyway, yeah, because he's like, there's so many great lines from Lugosi in this. Yeah, because like basically any time that he tries to, like anytime that like Karloff is brought up. They have to he has to diffuse the whole thing. Oh yeah, here we go. The Invisible Ray. You were great as Karloff psychic. Karloff psychic. Fuck you. Karloff does not deserve to smell my shit. That limey cocksucker can rot in hell for all I care.
Oh my god.
How dare that asshole bring up Karloff? You think it takes talent to play Frankenstein? It's all makeup and grunting.
Oh yeah, I remember he says something like Frank wasn't sexy enough.
Yeah, it's like if you want to make out with the ladies, take her to see Dracula. Yeah.
Sexy enough. That kills me.
It's all in the eyes and the voice and the hands. It's like, that's right. You seem a little agitated. You want to go outside and get some air? Bullshit. I'm ready now. Roll the camera. So a couple of things. Bela Lugosi never cursed. That was one thing about but again, we got an Amadeus type of situation here. It's like, it's much better that he's this way in this.
Yeah, because the reality would have been too depressing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I do, in the fandom, Lugosi does get backseated pretty hard by Karloff in terms of the classics.
Which is kind of weird nowadays.
Yeah, but I mean, Karloff made more movies that were more successful than Lugosi, but Lugosi usually outacted him whenever they were together in a movie. Lugosi was like a legitimate, he was a damn good actor. Especially in movies like Son of Dracula. Holy shit, he's great as Igor. Anyway,
I hear more about Bela these days than I do Karloff. Like just in general. Like people don't talk about, like they say Boris Karloff played Frankenstein.
Yeah.
But, like anything else, you never hear about it. But anyway.
Yeah, no. And I mean, Lugosi is he's more mysterious. He's more interesting of a presence on screen. Yeah.
Right. What's funny about it is his actual voice is like become the Dracula voice.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a Transylvanian, the dialect you'd expect to hear, I guess, but it's really just Bela Lugosi.
Well, it's very specific too, because in 1931 or 1930, when they were filming Dracula, Lugosi only knew enough English to say his lines. So his rhythm and the way he talks is off.
Yeah, it's in that
natural
dialect.
And he's only mimicking English.
Right. But he's talking like he's speaking in his natural tongue, I mean.
Exactly. Exactly.
Cadences.
Yeah, the cadence is all weird, which does a lot for that movie when there's no music in that movie. His voice kind of creates music, if you will. And
I will.
Yeah, okay. Good. But yeah, so it's like, it's just that, he did turn down Frankenstein, which probably also meant that he missed out on The Mummy. He missed out on a lot of other stuff. But for as much as Christopher Lee's talked about as Dracula for Hammer, Lugosi is still usually considered the best. So,
They're both pretty good in my opinion, but
well, they're the two. Those are your two options, right? It's like,
yeah. Otherwise, it's Gary Oldman.
Right, and his big butthead hair.
Yeah. Which he's a pretty good Dracula.
He's pretty good too.
Nobody talking about Frank Langella, man.
That's a good movie at least.
Which one's that?
I don't like his Dracula very much.
That was 78 or 9, around the same time as that version of Nosferatu. Jack Palance in the earlier 70s.
Yeah, Jack Palance. I don't like that one either.
Was that Dracula and the Legends of Curly's Gold?
Yes. Yeah. Actually, he got
one thing.
Well, the
Dracula
reason
rides into town on a horse backwards.
Yeah. he accidentally falls asleep on the horse, and then the sun comes up and he gets fried.
Oh my god! I don't even
That's
know
how
if the backwards horse riding is city slickers, but it seems like it should be.
It's fine. It's good.
Billy
enough.
Chris was like, he forgot the one thing.
You forgot the one thing: stay out of the sun.
Funny story, real quick, about Jack Palance as Dracula. He got that because with Dan Curtis, they made he was Jekyll and Hyde for Dan Curtis in the TV movie, and because of that, the art team at Marvel doing Tomb of Dracula decided he would make a really good Dracula.
So he balanced one role into another.
Yes, yes. So they made him look
That was
like
pretty
Dracula.
good. I have to give myself.
Yeah, that
that
was
one.
pretty good. And then he ended up getting the role as Dracula, completely and totally independent of Tomb of Dracula, modeling Dracula after him. So
Interesting.
anyway, yeah. So that's a little bit of a side, but well, what? Hey, nobody gives two fucks for Bella. Anyway,
Nobody.
so yeah, the where are we at here? So they make
They finish the film and they have the rat party.
yeah, and they're gonna go and they're gonna show it, and at the premiere, which is
One important note before that: this is when Dolores storms off the rat
Yes.
party and breaks up with him officially.
because
Wasting
he
your lives making shit.
yeah, and he's also doing a burlesque dance,
Yeah.
which also
Yes.
pisses her off.
Yes, and he
Which
runs
everybody
after-
else is like into it.
Yeah, because he surrounded himself with people. Like it's like what Bunny had said earlier. How do you get your friends to do this shit? Because he surrounded himself with people that enjoy his company, except for Dolores.
Yeah.
And when she says those hurtful things, he's not really concerned about her breaking up with him. He's more concerned if she meant it.
Yes.
Did you mean what you said about my movies? Right? Like he's not trying to get her to stick around or anything. He's like, is my shit really shit?
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah,
It's
you
not
feel-
even really a sad breakup, which
No.
in real life it probably was. Again, we're getting the more fun version of
right.
the reality.
Yeah, because Dolores goes off and starts writing Elvis Presley songs.
Yes.
Like
Pretty wild. Not
Yeah,
very good
that is
ones,
wild.
but she wrote them.
but she wrote music. Yeah, I mean, like
Yeah.
she did something else.
They're not like his best songs. I mean,
No,
I don't-
no.
yeah.
No, but like, I mean, she's not making shitty movies anymore. I guess.
No,
She's
she probably did pretty good. If she,
Probably.
she signed the right contract with those songs, she probably did pretty well.
Yeah. So yeah. So now, this is when they are.
This is when Bella goes off the deep end.
Yeah. So he ends up needing to be checked in to a rehab center, basically. But he and Eddie goes and visits him, and he's going to take care of him. He's going to help pay for everything. But in the long run, it turns out that it's too expensive, and they has to take him back home. But in the short term, he meets somebody extremely important, and that is Patricia Arquette playing the most adorable person in the world in this movie.
The most adorable Patricia Arquette has ever been. for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. And this is Kathy. Kathy would be Ed Wood's wife for the rest of his life. So this is, and she's like actually kind of important to the behind the scenes because Patricia Arquette met with her. They liked each other, and that was, and it kind of comes through that like this is a very sweet person who probably had to put up with some stuff.
So Bella, who in a way is kind of like Ed Wood's father in this movie in a lot of ways, and her father are both in. I don't know if her father had a drug problem. I'm assuming everyone there is in there for some sort of drug problem
or alcohol, one or the other, some sort of abuse.
Yeah. What'd you say, Jason? Oh, sorry. I thought you said something. But yeah, they have a kinship in that. She's making these adorable booties for her father, and then she makes some for Bella too.
Yeah. Well, with she does have a funny line here because she's like, "Oh, he doesn't like the socks here. It gets too cold, so I knit him these booties." Oh, that's great. You make is that your first pair? It's like, no, this is my 17th pair or whatever, 13th pair or whatever. So he's been there for a long time.
Yes, which is it's informing you how long Bella should probably be there.
Yeah.
But he, again, as you mentioned, his insurance lapsed years ago that he had from his filming days. So he has
From
to
the
leave.
Screen Actors Guild.
Yeah, from the Screen Actors Guild. And he has to leave. To which Ed Wood's like, "You're all better. Let's go."
Yeah.
He's like, "I am."
I don't feel so good, Eddie.
Yeah. It's like, I'm surprised that he did he actually say the word hogwash in this movie?
Eddie did.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought, but not like it's like that's a bunch of hogwash. It's like
He said, "I told him hogwash when he called on the phone."
That's right.
Is when he said it. A really funny thing, and I wish I had written some of these down. For some reason, the Amazon Prime version of this that I rented didn't have the cuss words in the captioning. And they replaced some funny ass shit in there, but I didn't write any of them down.
That's weird.
Yeah, like I can't remember whenever Bella said fuck, it said kooks or something. I don't know. It was really weird. I was like, what the fuck is this? What the kook is this?
Oh, there is one other. This is while they're making Bride of the Monster, when this is a little fourth wall breaking when they ask him what dress that Loretta should wear for the scene, and he's like, "Well, which one? It's like the red one or the green one or whatever." He's like, "Which one's the red one?" Yeah, yeah. It's like, I don't know. I like the darker gray one. Yeah.
That is, I didn't even consider that as a joke of like the black and white format.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is funny.
The
actually.
colorblind cinematographer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, which is perfect also for Ed Wood. So.
Oh, that's good. But yeah, so there's this really sweet scene where Bella is kind of letting Ed know, I think, that he's on his way out, and he kind of knows it, even though he's kicked the habit, because you don't know how long he's really been there, but it hasn't been that long. Maybe a month to get a pair of booties from Ed's girlfriend. But Ed's like, "We're going to make another movie." And he's like, "Let's film you walking out of the house hurriedly." And Bella's like, "What if I go slowly and smell the roses?" It's like,
this is the scene that is really touching, I think.
it is, because you can feel that it's Bella knowing what
And he's
his fate
savoring what
is.
he has left. Yeah.
Yes, I would have savored the day. I don't want to hurry anymore. I want to smell the flowers. I want to. Yeah, it's really kind of touching and sweet. But what it does do for Ed, well, let's just say very shortly after that, Ed gets the call that Bella dies.
Yeah, but there is one really important thing right after they film that last scene, which is really nice and sweet and kind of touching, that it's like, it's kind of celebrating the brevity of life, but they are walking downtown and he says his last lines that he said, "I'll never forget the lines that you wrote for me."
Oh, yeah.
From Bride of the Monster.
Man without a home, or what? Yeah.
Yeah. And then there are people who are celebrating him and they want his autograph, and it's the last tribute. And then it was right after that he gets the call that that he's passed away.
Yeah, and it's cool because there are people clapping on the street for him as he does his lines, and someone asks him for his autograph. It's like, it's a good send off for Lugosi in this, but we're not done with him.
Either of you get any sense that there was something personal there with Tim Burton and his relationship with Vincent Price? Like, I think there's quite an interesting parallel there.
I know nothing about this.
Yeah, that's a good call.
I just have to think that's something that Tim Burton probably gravitated to in the script, was the relationship between Ed Wood and Bela Lugosi, since he had a similar relationship with Vincent Price at the end of his life.
Well, this is the movie that is typically considered his most personal. Mm-hmm. So you'd have to think that there's something there, right? Like, he sees himself in some way as Ed Wood with the budget, maybe,
Yeah.
and yeah, he did have Vincent Price in his life.
I didn't know this, so I wouldn't have
Yeah, I
thought that.
mean, Vincent Price was, he was in Edward Scissorhands.
Yep.
And what was he? Was he like a voice on Frankenweenie? Was that the other thing?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, so he was involved in his early career. And I think that Edward Scissorhands was the last screen role of
Yeah, I
Vincent
think so,
Price.
because he died in like 92 or so.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's right. So yes, I mean, knowing that, I would assume very much he probably borrowed from that
Yeah, you would
relationship.
have to think, right?
Yeah.
Which is funny because like Vincent Price, he was a hard worker right up to his death. Like people knew who he was. Like that was not insignificant when he passed away.
Oh no, I mean, if you were a kid in the 80s, you fucking loved Vincent Price just because of Thriller.
Thriller, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
But he did a bunch of like commercials for like Halloween time stuff, and
One, he was always, his movies were always on like TBS and shit. Like
He was definitely like of the horror icons. He's the one I was the most recognizable to me growing up. Was Vincent
yeah,
Price.
because I think he did a lot of stuff that was kid friendly as well.
yes, he did.
Yep.
Yes, he did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like he was on Scooby Doo and shit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was also
the thing I
after
knew Boris Karloff from the most was probably from the Grinch. Wasn't he the narrator of the Grinch?
yes, I believe he is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Interesting.
The
like as a wee lad, I was like Boris Karloff was the deep voice from the Grinch. Like
He does
Yeah.
that. He's a mean one.
Yeah.
Mr. Grinch. Yeah, that's
sure that's or is
yeah.
is that Burl Ives?
Burl Ives did. He was Frosty the Snowman.
Yeah, that's right.
all I remember
He
is
was.
Bing Crosby
He
and David
narrated,
Bowie.
How the Grinch Stole
That was the little drummer boy.
Christmas.
Yeah.
And he was a voice.
We are in December, right?
Yes. Yes,
voice
we
of
are.
the Grinch. Yep. Boris
Got it. Thank you.
No, but yeah, I mean, there was also the right after Vincent Price died, they had the really funny thing on The Simpsons where Marge had to call to get a replacement piece, and Vincent Price answers the phone from beyond the grave and tells her to call his son Jody.
Oh God.
Anyway,
I'm
hey,
sure
that's a
you've
deep cut.
taken no inspiration from that in your professional career. Having dead actors call from the grave.
I don't know what you're
Cameron
talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, icons, not actors.
That's
Jeff.
kind of crazy. Like Boris Karloff's only major award in his career was a Grammy award
For the Mr. Grinch song?
for the Grinch album. Yeah, pretty sure it was. That's what.
No, they're not giving Oscars to the Universal Classics, even though Frederick March did win an Oscar for Jekyll and Hyde.
Jekyll and Hyde. God, he
But that was
so good.
not Universal.
It's not a Universal monster movie. Yeah. He's
Anyhow.
so good in that, though. Sorry.
Yes, he was. Maybe one day. That
Was the last thing that Karloff did? His last screen role was that Bogdanovich's Targets.
I believe so.
That's kind of wild too, because that's a similar story.
Yeah.
And Bogdanovich was kind of like that, though. He was very interested in the old Hollywood icons who weren't acting anymore. He surrounded himself with them. Like he did, instead of going to parties and stuff, he would like hang out with, old washed up actors and kind of learn the craft.
Bullshit. Let's get back to Ed Wood.
Anyway, sorry.
So they get the idea or they get the call that Lugosi died. Now Lugosi, at his funeral, Ed Wood was a pallbearer,
Makes sense.
along with some other actually somewhat significant people. I meant to pull that up before I did that, but or before I talked about that. But yeah, he keeps watching that last footage he had with with Lugosi.
A sweet scene. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, and he finds out by talking to this person that they want to make 12 movies about the apostles, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
just like
One
that
about
Fox
each
Nation, TV show presented by Martin Scorsese. I've seen those commercials every 5
Oh
minutes.
God,
during
yes.
football.
But yes,
I tune that shit out.
but I don't know if Ed Wood really did this, but this is really smart. He's like, you would make one movie that sells, and then you can finance 1,000 pictures.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It makes sense if there were anyone other than Ed Wood making a movie.
Yes,
Yeah.
and this is why, if this part of the story is true, if he was able, which I think he was, to convince a church to let him make his movie,
Right.
he had to be very charismatic.
Oh, he had
Had
something.
to be.
Yeah.
That used car salesman,
Yeah.
like charisma, right?
Yes, it's like me when I used to sell the super combo, upcharge people from a small popcorn and a medium drink to a large and a large.
Any commission on that?
Yeah, I got a quarter per upgrade, and I also got offered a job at Ray Skillman Ford, I think. Like, legitimately, some guys like, have you ever thought about selling cars? You should come talk to me. I'm the manager at this place. I'm like, no, thank you, because I left for California shortly after that.
That reminds me of the guy who came into the video store once, and he looked at me stone cold serious, says, Ray Skillman might stack them deep and sell them cheap, but he sells drugs to kids. I was just like, what?
Was that VH1?
No, that was that.
Oh, okay.
Blockbuster. Edgewood. Yeah.
That's
Oh my
amazing.
God.
That is amazing.
I mean, cool.
But he does convince this church to hand over the money for him to make Grave Robbers from Outer Space, right? Was the original title.
Yes.
Which, of course, comes in tow with these two gentlemen who think they're part of the story. But part of how he sells it is like, we have a star. We have Bela Lugosi. And he pulls his little tin can. You think he's going to like pull the urn? Like, I was getting the idea that he's going to pull his dead body and ashes out. But he's like, and the guy's like, that's awful small. He's like, yeah, well, we can get a body double to be in the rest of the movie. And he convinces them.
Yeah, but they don't like the title. They eventually, so as they start filming, they keep coming back with notes. One, they want the choir lead to be the dashing hero of the movie. And it's like, and it's like, okay, I got to do that now again. And then it's like, I don't like the movie. What about Plan 9 from Outer Space? And he's like, that sounds stupid. And then he later comes around to that one.
I actually do like the title of that movie. Plan 9 is
Plan 9.
For some reason, it's better than Grave Robbers because you're like, what is Plan 9?
Exactly.
You know what Grave Robbers is.
To which Bill Murray will gladly pull up a piece of paper, just like in the movie, and read the lines of what Plan 9 is. I love it. Fucking love it.
I want to mention, since you brought up Bill Murray, when Tor Johnson comes up to him, he's like, Mr. Bunny, what's wrong? I heard you were becoming a lady. Fucking floored me. Like, that fucking kills me.
Yeah, it's because his life's dream after seeing Glen or Glenda now is to go to Mexico, have a sex change operation, and marry his boyfriend as at that point in time, heterosexual relationship.
Yeah.
And to which he does go to Mexico, but it turns out to be a nightmare.
His boyfriend dies in a car. Go ahead, Jason.
I like before that, though, when he says, goodbye, penis.
Yeah.
But okay, so he's telling this whole story about how they got in a car crash and his boyfriend died.
Yes.
And you have this like weird Mexican music playing, and then it's
Mariachi band.
Mariachi band
it pans over. He's like, I'd still be there if it wasn't for these fine gentlemen. And the mariachi band is there.
No
a
more
really
additional
good
context at
Yeah.
all. It's just, yep. Oh, God, it kills me.
That's the kind of stuff I really like in this movie.
Oh,
Yes.
God. Yeah. So, yeah. And they go to so they got to try to figure out So he has Doogie Howser's friend go and get him Bella lookalike.
Jesus Christ, that's who he is. Like, I know
Oh
this
yeah,
guy.
you missed it earlier when I called him that. You were
Sorry.
like,
The whole movie, I'm like, why do I know this? It's Doogie Howser's friend. Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Continue.
So he's like, he brings these three guys to Ed Wood's apartment. And he's like, well, he's too old. He's too fat. And then the third guy's like, he just won't do because he's like,
do
he's
better, man.
I think he's Asian or something.
Yeah,
he's
he's
Asian.
He's like, he just won't do.
I thought it'd be like when Bella played something like
Fu Manchu.
Fu Manchu.
And he's like, that
Yeah.
wasn't Fu Manchu. Yeah, that was Karloff who played.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's like, don't forget, you got to keep Sunday open because we're getting baptized. Got it.
So good.
And sure enough, they're at church now because, oh, well, it's that night that they find Kathy's chiropractor. And because she's complaining of her neck hurting and he's going to crack her neck. And as he's doing so, like Ed's getting the look of the profile and he holds up a little napkin. It's like, it's uncanny. And it's like, it's really nothing like
It's not
brilliant.
It's not uncanny at all.
Yeah, it's brilliant. But and he's like, it's like, and then this is when they go to the church to get baptized, and Bunny says, "All right, now let's hear him call Boris Karloff a cocksucker."
Very good. Very good.
And they're all snickering in the back of the church because they're not taking that for real. And and then when Bunny gets baptized, it's like, do you like says the whole thing about taking Jesus as the savior, and he's like, sure. And then
Sure.
and then he almost drops him too, which is great.
Yep.
So then they keep picking at the movie, and eventually Ed's had enough, and he gets into his alter ego. And he dresses as a woman. He comes out and he just makes the best goddamn movie he can make, which we know is
Well, after meeting
Plan
his
9.
hero Orson Welles,
yes,
which is not insignificant, and I'm betting obviously the one really fabricated part of this story.
absolutely.
But
Definitely.
I mean, more likely that Ed Wood met Vincent D'Onofrio time traveling.
right. But it is like,
Yeah, he might have been the guy from that movie Happy Accidents, the time
my
traveler. Yeah.
it is
Although
funny that
I will
it's-
say, D'Onofrio looks a lot like Orson Welles.
in this
He does.
movie he surely does.
I think he's played him twice.
But it is like,
Like,
even though this is a fabricated part, it is reminding you what Ed Wood's real inspiration is,
Yeah.
right? I want to be an actor, producer, writer. That's what I want to do, and I want to do it my way, like Orson Welles did. So it's just a reminder for you here. And he does, because he had stormed off the set, now he storms back on the set and is like, let's fucking go. And he's like, it's great. Put it in the can, put it in the can, put it in the can. And they make the shit that is Plan 9 from outer space. I hope everyone that's seen Ed Wood has seen at least that movie of Ed Wood's. I hope. If not, you should go watch it for the fun.
The three that they focused on absolutely were his three most famous, by far. Because after Plan 9 is when he got into like making pornography and stuff.
But you don't hear as much about Plan 9 as I did when I was a kid these days. I feel like
in certain circles, you absolutely would, though.
I meant new like film watchers, like kids who are like 20 or 25 who maybe, I don't know if they're listening to our show, but are maybe discovering film. They might not be hearing a lot about Ed Wood now.
Well, at my next family holiday, I will get my nephews copies of Plan 9 from Outer Space.
because
Like,
his name
watch
was
this.
everywhere.
Yeah.
In the 90s. When we were kids,
Understand.
primarily- yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, like, go ahead, Chuck. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, like, because of this movie and because of things like Mystery Science Theater 3000 or anyone who'd play late night cheap public domain films or whatever, that was our life. Like, because we could only watch what was on TV.
Yep.
Right? Like kids aren't like that anymore. So I'm wondering if they're getting the same kind of exposure through new media, right?
Yeah, and it's funny because, like Jason said earlier, it's like being named the worst of something should draw people in like a
Absolutely.
moth to a flame. But would they even understand why he's bad now, considering, like I said, what is out there now on an even tighter budget and lower budget?
That's a very interesting concept, but I don't know if those films reach as much of the younger audiences as they would us, like our generation, because we kind of seek that shit out.
Yeah, kind of. And thanks to, Ed Wood.
Yeah, thanks, Ed Wood. Thanks to our childhood. Thanks to Mad Movies and all those things.
MST3K and Joe Bob Briggs, I mean,
which there is a generation, obviously a new generation that watches his show. But
he's not playing Ed Wood.
No, he's not.
So anyway, it's the big premiere of Plan 9. It's raining, which this is again, Ed Wood still has to have Ed Wood like luck. He can't.
It rains at every one of his premieres in this movie.
It does. It does. This time he can't pull the top up on his convertible. He's like, just leave it. It's like it'll be fine. And they go in, and it's only in his dreams could he have a premiere like this.
It's like a total dream
scenario. It's the culmination of this very pleasant movie about this character, and it's like everybody's clapping, everybody's enjoying it, everybody's getting his vision.
Whatever happened that day was probably maybe this for him, right? Like even if there were 12 people, it probably felt like this to him.
Sure.
So I'm cool. Like the representation is good.
Yeah. And he decides to leave early, and he and Kathy are gonna go off and ride off into the sunset, basically.
Get married in Vegas.
Yep. Get married in Vegas, and then they were gonna go to Mexico too, weren't they? Like for their honeymoon.
Maybe, yeah.
Anyway, so they go off and they ride off, and everything is hunky dory. And that's when we find out, it's like Loretta King did make a few more movies. Bunny was still alive at the time that the movie came out.
Yep.
He was in New Jersey, I think they said at the time, which is kind of course he'd be in New Jersey,
He was acting in The Life Aquatic at the time, I'm pretty sure.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I'm years off probably, but
still though. And it's like, Ed died in 78, but Kathy was there up until he died, and then she didn't remarry after that. All of that is true. And Dolores was writing music for Elvis Presley.
Wild.
And Criswell, I liked how they said that he left our plane of existence or whatever, our dimension.
Yes.
In like 82 or whatever it was. Yeah, 82. But
as much as I hate Jeffrey Jones, I like Jeffrey Jones in movies.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I'll say on that.
Fair enough.
He's funny in movies all the time, but he's a dickhead.
Yes. Agreed. This is one of those movies where it's like, there would have been people around like Kathy Wood and Bunny who would have, been able to refute anything that, it's like that would have been wildly off base. But even Lugosi's family seemed to appreciate that this is it's fictionalized in the right way to where it's not mean-spirited at all.
I think his representation is probably the most accurate in this movie, honestly.
Well, if nothing else, it's the most touching. It's the heart of the movie.
Film. Yeah, for sure.
And so, it's sometimes when you just contextualize things in a way like this, it just works.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a solid movie. I appreciate it way more now than I did was that 30 years ago now? Holy
Yeah,
shit.
30 years. Yeah.
Yeah, like I appreciate it definitely more now. I think age has given me an appreciation of a lot of the concepts and themes in this movie. So yeah, bravo. And it really is the last really good movie that Tim Burton ever did, for sure.
Yeah.
I'll still say Big Fish is all right.
I like Big Fish.
Big Fish is good, but that doesn't feel like a Tim Burton movie to me.
No.
Either.
No. Whatever he's doing nowadays, I don't like it. I didn't even like Beetlejuice. So,
I haven't seen that yet. I won't comment.
yeah.
But I don't even like Beetlejuice as much as I used to. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if my opinion about it has ever changed, but I will say that is one of those distant third place movie. That and Pee-wee's Big Adventure,
Yeah.
So
I thought Corpse Ride was okay, and I thought Sweeney Todd was okay.
oh
Those
yeah,
are decent.
Yeah,
Those
Sweeney
are
Todd.
decent for sure.
Sweeney Todd's pretty good,
Yeah,
actually. But that's the last one.
And that is a known property, right? That he was just...
yes, he adapted that. That was that was a play or a musical.
Steven Sondheim musical. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if Stephen Sondheim ever is he like the Bela Lugosi to like, I don't know, who's that one guy that the Bradley Cooper was?
Oh my God. Where are we going here?
I was trying to
schnoz?
Yeah, I was trying to compare the old, the old guys.
Who are you trying to compare him to?
What movie was Bradley Cooper in last year where he had the big nose?
Oh, Maestro. He was Leonard Bernstein.
Yeah, so it's,
I think it's a little bit different. I mean, Leonard Bernstein, he developed like symphonies.
oh, that's fair.
I don't think he did Broadway.
Okay, Andrew Lloyd Webber then. I wonder if Webber and Sondheim
that's
are
a
like,
better- that's a
I
better-
want to make an Ed Wood version where it's Chuck goes and meets Stephen Sondheim,
kind of
and
funny
any time that
because-
Webber is brought up, he's like, he's a cocksucker, blah, blah, blah.
That's kind of funny because I was thinking like Phantom of the
Bernstein
Opera
did have
would be a...
musicals. I totally forgot. Like his West Side Story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
But like a Phantom of the Opera by Tim Burton could be fun.
Sure.
Like that
Anything by Tim Burton could be fun. It's just it's been a long time.
right. Fair.
Been a very long
But
time.
this one, the one we talked about today, successful movie, good stuff.
Yeah. No, and this is, and yeah, it's very clear it's personal. And yeah, maybe it is because of that Vincent Price connection, but it wasn't originally supposed to be filmed or made by Burton. It was actually, it was supposed to be made by,
Orson Welles.
yes, no, Michael Lehman. And, because he had directed Heathers, but Lehman was working on Airheads at the time and passed it up.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah,
Heathers is great.
Well, I think
Airheads
at the
is
same
something.
time, I read Tim Burton was was supposed to direct Mary Riley, which ended up going to
Mary Riley.
who took that?
Isn't it the thing from that movie? Mary Riley. Her name gets whispered a lot.
I've never seen it, to be honest.
I don't know if I have.
Directed it.
But I remember the trailer, and it was always like Mary Riley. Sorry,
That's
I don't even know if
the feeling.
Julia Roberts, right?
Yeah, I feel like that's one that Del Toro would have done better than anyone. It's like gothic horror, Yeah. Anyway,
yeah.
Moving on.
Anyway,
Julia Roberts, that seems weird to be in that role too. Originally, it was Tim Burton with Winona Ryder as Mary Riley.
Interesting.
Yeah.
He likes his people, that Tim Burton.
he sure does.
Yeah.
One thing,
next week?
real quick.
Oh,
Well,
go
real
ahead.
quick, I wanted to say, Chuck, you had mentioned that you'd felt that maybe Johnny Depp didn't have a great deal of range because he was kind of playing Willy Wonka in this,
or vice versa.
And I think that is Tim Burton. I think, and as I said, I kind of feel like Tim Burton portrays idealistic, naive people all on one note, and that is the Ed Wood note.
It's kind of weird because I don't feel like Ed Wood would be like that, but I feel like there has to be way more to him than what is shown in this movie and the way it's portrayed.
Well, I think it's it's obviously being. Well, I mean, the way he's portraying it is playing up the what if the worst director of all time was actually just following what he wanted to do and how he wanted to do it, and it paints him in a much lighter light,
right?
But no, I mean, I think Johnny Depp has a ton of range. I think it's just Tim Burton.
Maybe. I mean, I like Johnny Depp in a lot of movies, but I think he's Johnny Depp in a lot of movies. But I say that about a lot of actors. But there are actors out there that like turn into different fucking people, and Johnny Depp really isn't one of them. No,
I mean, he's no Christian Bale or Gary Oldman or Martin Landau, as it turns out.
Or Daniel Day-Lewis. So he is, I think I stand by my limited range thing because, and it may be Tim Burton that's forcing him into that box in these, but I don't know. He's the same guy in Benny and June as he is in What's Eating Gilbert Grape, in my opinion. He just doesn't talk in one of them. But I mean, Benny and Judy doesn't really talk a lot.
I know, but I don't know if he's the same. I mean, he's pretty subdued in What's Eating Gilbert Grape. He's not.
He only has a few like Chaplin-like scenes in Benny and June too, though, that I remember.
But I mean, I always thought of him in What's Eating Gilbert Grape as kind of the quiet loner guy.
Well, he's the one who everything is happening to, right? Like he's got to deal with his mom. He's got to deal with his brother. You know, I mean, I haven't seen those in long enough or to even like really form.
I don't know. I think he's got range. We just.
I mean, he's not
fixate on his more like eccentric roles.
Yeah.
And yes, he plays kind of maybe eccentricism similarly across some of those roles, but I think he's got range beyond that. I mean,
he's not Keanu Reeves, who I think.
Oh, I think he's in this. He like maybe was near the boat.
I think he has more range than Keanu Reeves.
I think he's got a lot. I think that arc is way higher.
Look at him in something like Dead Man or Donnie.
I knew you were going to bring up Dead Man.
Or Donnie Brasco.
Good in Donnie Brasco.
Hell, even if you want to take like him as most eccentric, but absolutely nails it, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Oh boy, that's a good point. That's on the list. That's on the list, guys. It's coming.
That's a good point.
So when's the last time you watched Blow? He's fucking tremendous in that.
Yeah.
He's good, man. He's good. He just does take a lot of like low hanging fruit roles, I think.
Maybe I just remember a lot of those more.
I think what Jason's saying is that Johnny has depth.
Got him.
Boom. Got it.
On that note.
All right. Next week, let's go to France for a weirdo movie. That it's good though. It's good. It's not what I was expecting this month, but okay. City of Lost Children.
It's a Christmas movie. I mean, come on.
It's got more Santa Claus than Ed Wood does.
Well, that's true. I mean, it's got a lot. Well, we'll talk about why I'm picking that Muppet movie and not that Muppet movie. All right. Anyway, so yeah, Jason will tell you all about these guys who.
These guys
who made this movie. So yeah, City of Lost Children.
Well, indeed.
That is Wednesday, December 11th. Chuck's brother's birthday.
True that.
Yep. One of the infamous 11s. Anyway, we're the best around. Nobody
is going to ever bring you down.
Yep.
Way better than those 8s.
Yeah. Anyway, so.
Wait, I'm an 8.
Yeah, you crapped out. Anyway. So anyway, so that is next Wednesday. Go to filmseizure.com, find all the places where we are on social media, all the places you can subscribe to us, all of that good stuff. Also, on all of those same places, filmseizure.com, this upcoming Monday, I have a new Monster Mondays. I should say it like Criswell. And I project that I will be talking about the Monster Club.
Monster Club. That
Yeah.
movie always gets me in a good mood.
It's a good movie. It's
It's not
fun.
Monster Squad, but it's Monster Club.
I like that. I like Monster Squad too. That always gets me in a good mood.
True. That's someday. That's the one. Yeah. It's funny. I don't have more movies with monster in the title than I do on Monster Mondays, but that's beside the point. Anyway, all the same places, filmseizure.com will be the place where you can find that business. This upcoming Friday at my website, bmovieanima.com, check out my review of The Deadly Spawn. So anyway.
Do it.
Yeah, do that. Do that, jerks. Anyway, so yeah, with that, I'm going to go back to my coffin and rest for the night. I've been Jeff Arbuckle.
I'm Dr. Acula.
Yeah,
I'm Jason Oliver, and you have been listening to Film Seizure.